Hi everybody, I'm going to be walking you through a round of Rummathon Royale today. For setup, the dealer gives everybody 12 cards and then randomly gives out one of these rule cards. These rule cards have the sequences that you'll need to complete during the game. Each are a little bit different, but in my case, the first sequence I have to complete is one set of 3, one set of 2, and one run of 4. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. Once you have your cards, you can start organizing them based on the sequence that you're trying to complete. So in my case, I already have a set of 2. I don't really have any other duplicates, but I do almost have a run of 4. In this round, player 3 has dealt out the cards, which means that me, player 1, gets to start. I can't draw from the discard pile unless I can make my sequence, so in this case I draw from the middle, see if that card helps me at all, and if I can't play my sequence, then I simply just discard a card into the river. Once that's done, it's player 2's turn. Player 2 is going to do the same thing. She draws a card, realizes that she can't play anything, and so she discards as well. Player 3 also draws a card and discards a card. For my turn, I realize that I can make my sequence by taking 2 cards from the river. So I add those to my hand and then use them to play cards down to complete my sequence. So I put down my run of 4 along with my set of 3 cards and then finally my set of 2 cards. Now all that's left for me to do is to get rid of the rest of the cards in my hand. And I can do that by playing to my sequences if I have cards for them, or by playing cards to other players' sequences once they've completed them. Turns continue to go around in this fashion of drawing a card and discarding until finally one player manages to get all of the cards out of their hand. After a few turns, player 3 is able to draw from the discard so that she can set down her sequence, and once she's done so, she can play to hers or to another player's sequence. So she adds 2 cards to my run, and then discards a card and is completely out of cards, meaning that the round is now over. Now, I was able to get my sequence done, so I move on to sequence number 2 in round 2, but I didn't get any points. Player 2 was unable to complete her sequence, so she stays at sequence number 1 for the next round. And because player 3 completed her sequence and got all of her cards out of her hand, she now tallies up and scores the cards that were left in player 1 and 2's hand. Numbers 1 through 5 are worth 5 points, 9 through 10 are worth 10 points, and then this flex card is worth 25 points. She comes out of round 1 with a total of 110 points. Nice job, player 3. To go to the next round, you reset. Anybody that has points can choose to buy extra cards for their hand at the beginning of the round. Player 3 decides to spend 20 points for 2 cards, leaving her with 90 points. But let's fast forward and go through some of the action cards you can play. In this round, I've used some flex cards to complete my sequences, and I'm left with a bypass card and a block card. Using one of these counts as a discard and ends my turn, so I decide to play a block card in front of me, which keeps the other players from playing on my sequence. If I had chosen the bypass card, I could have picked another player and skipped that player's next turn. But I'll save that for later. Player 2 draws a card and then decides that she's going to discard a sabotage card. This ends the turn but makes it so that every other player has to give up their flex cards. I don't have any, but player 3 does. Player 2 collects the flex cards and the sabotage card and shovels them back in before her turn is over. Now player 3 draws a card for her next turn, and she draws a double burden card. However, she cannot play this card because me and player 2 have already laid down our sequences. So she decides to play some cards over on player 2's sequence before discarding a card to end her turn. Now I draw a card, realize that I can play all of my cards by adding to player 2's sequence and player 3's sequence, and then I'm left with this bypass card which I just discard, and then the round is over. We score, reset, and continue on with the game. And that's how rounds work in Rummathon Royale. Hopefully this round overview was helpful, and if you have any questions, please let us know. Thanks for playing!